Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Sonia Chavez. I'm the U.S. Marshal for the District of New Mexico, and I also have the distinct honor of being the current co-chair or current chair of the HIDTA Executive Board. Thank you for being here. We're here to announce some exciting results from a 90-day operation that was conducted statewide. The culmination of the results will be announced shortly. But first, I'd like to introduce the partners here. Know that I feel a little nervous. Can I start over? Okay. I want to tell you first. So we conducted operations in Las Cruces, Alamogordo, Carlsbad, Hobbs, Roswell, Deming, Albuquerque, Los Lunas, Santa Fe, Espanola, Las Vegas, Farmington, and I'm sure many county roads and state roads in between. It took everybody in this room to make this happen. The idea for this really was hatched several months ago by two really esteemed individuals who have great experience working drug crimes, and that's the head of the DEA and the head of New Mexico HIDTA, who used to be with the DEA. So the plan here was to try to address a growing problem in New Mexico and throughout our country, and that is the abuse of fentanyl, the growing presence of fentanyl, and how it's affecting our communities. So we put together what I think is an incredibly powerful plan to work together to provide as much support as we could, particularly to communities that don't have access to the resources that maybe some of our bigger communities do. So know that we had team members from federal, state, local agencies who are used to working together. So this was another opportunity for each of them to do the thing that they do best. We have a lot of our deputies up here, but it took people from all over the state. We're really proud of the combined effort. It was my honor as the U.S. Marshal to deputize over 100 state and local deputies to give them the authority to act with us on all our federal task forces, DEA, ATF, HSI, and of course the Bureau. So we had over 100. 35 of those were from Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office and about that many from state police. So that gives us the opportunity to really act as one team as we do all of this. So I'm going to make some quick introductions, and then we're going to announce the results. We're going to have our agency heads make a few comments, and then we'll open it up for questions. First, I'd like to introduce our host today, the Sheriff of Bernalillo County, Manuel Gonzalez. Next, we have Sheriff Mark Cage from Eddy County, who also has the distinct honor of being the co-chair of New Mexico HIDTA, so he's my partner in this. Coming up from Lee County, Lovington, John Martinez, Chief Deputy from Lee County Sheriff's Office. And we have representing the New Mexico State Police, Deputy Chief Troy Weisler. We have Wes Hatley from the New Mexico Department of Probation and Parole. And we have Deputy Chief Josh Brown from the Albuquerque Police Department. Our federal partners, DEA Special Agent in Charge Greg Millard from the El Paso Division. The new SAC for Homeland Security Investigations, Frank Barola, up from El Paso, with his deputy SAC, Jeff Mayfield. Jeff, right here. Great partner. FBI Special Agent in Charge Raul Bujanda, right here. And ATF ASAC Jason Schmidt, right here. Okay, so right now I'd like to call up Will Glaspie. Will Glaspie is the director of New Mexico HIDTA. He came here to us 3 years ago and really brought New Mexico HIDTA to a whole new level of professionalism and expectation, and we feel very fortunate to have him here. Before coming to HIDTA, he was a special agent in charge for DEA, both in El Paso and in Houston, which I'm told they call a super SAC office, probably one of the biggest, if not the largest DEA office in the country. So we're very fortunate to have Will's expertise in leading this combined drug initiative in New Mexico. So Will's going to talk to you a little bit about New Mexico HIDTA, the HIDTA model, why it's so effective. So Will Glaspie.
Thank you, Marshall.
Sir.
As Marshall said, I'm the Executive Director for New Mexico High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, more commonly referred to by our acronym of HIDTA. HIDTA was created by Congress in 1988. New Mexico HIDTA was stood up in 1990 as part of the Southwest Border HIDTA, one of the 5 original HIDTAs that were created that year. Today there are 33 HIDTAs across the country. In New Mexico, we have 17 HIDTA designated counties on the map there in the green. My office supports 17 enforcement groups, 7 prosecution groups, 2 prevention initiatives, and several support initiatives. There are 2 very unique things about the HIDTA program. First is, as the Marshal said, all the agents work together. We don't fund an agency that's operating by themselves. Everybody, all of our enforcement task forces that we support work in a multi-agency environment. And the second thing that is really unique to any federal program is that when Congress passes out the funding each year for the HIDTA program, the determination on how that money is going to be spent is not made by a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. It's made by the New Mexico HIDTA Executive Board, our law enforcement professionals here and others who sit on the board. They're the ones that know day in and day out what's needed across the state, and they make the determination on how that money is going to be spent. Lastly, before I finish, I want to bring your attention to the top left bulletin board there. We'd hope to get these things out in conjunction with the end of this roundup, but starting next week and going through the month of June, we'll be rolling out billboards in Espanola, Albuquerque, and Las Cruces to draw attention to the dangers of fentanyl and counterfeit pills. The billboards will hopefully drive traffic back to the New Mexico HIDTA website, where we are continuously updating the information that we have regarding treatment options in the state and across the country. We know that a lot of people in the state across the country are struggling these days with substance abuse issues. We want to get those people the help that they need, that they deserve. So we're trying to drive some traffic there so people have one place they can go to find some treatment options. So thank you very much, Marshall.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to call up Special Agent in Charge for the DEA, Greg Millard. As you all know, the Drug Enforcement Agency is the nation's leading federal agency on drug interdiction and all drug matters, so we feel very fortunate to have the partnership leadership of DEA on this operation and all our joint operations, so there's no better qualified person to speak to you about the fentanyl epidemic itself and the technicalities of that. Mr. Millard.
Thank you, Marshall. Good afternoon. My name is Greg Millard, and I'm the Special Agent in Charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration's El Paso Division, which includes the entire state of New Mexico. I want to thank all of our law enforcement and media partners who are here today, especially Marshal Chavez. Thank you. Last year, over 107,000 Americans died from a drug overdose. That's over 290 deaths a day, making it the leading cause of death for Americans aged 15 to 44. Even more troubling is that 66% of overdose deaths involve synthetic opioids like fentanyl, and 31% involved psychostimulants like methamphetamine. Operation Blue Cross is just one example of DEA's robust strategy targeting the criminal drug networks who are profiteering from American lives by pushing these powerful, illicitly made drugs into our communities. DEA will continue to work tirelessly with our federal, state, and local partners to identify, disrupt, and dismantle the criminal drug networks operating in New Mexico. We will continue to harness our enforcement and intelligence efforts to target those causing the most harm and hold them responsible. DEA is known for safeguarding our communities through law enforcement. However, we also safeguard our communities through prevention, community outreach, and awareness campaigns. Last year, we launched Operation Engage in Albuquerque as a 5-year community outreach initiative. Through Operation Engage, we will partner with stakeholders from all the major community sectors and bring education and awareness of this growing problem plaguing our community. If you would like to partner with us, please visit abq.dea.gov. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
And now we're going to give you the numbers that we're all so proud of. Know, again, that every agency brings something very specific to the table. We all have missions that are very specific, but all of them involve working together, and certainly the federal partners, all our missions involve supporting our local partners. And so we're calling up the Deputy Chief Troy Weisler from the New Mexico State Police to actually make this announcement, and there's a reason why. The state police has a very unique role in New Mexico HIDTA in that the state police has the largest footprint, really, in the state of New Mexico in terms of local partners. And for obvious reasons, they're all over the state, but there is not a HIDTA initiative or task force that is not supported by directly, the state police. So they play an incredible role in New Mexico HIDTA. So we thought it was appropriate to ask the state police to announce the results. So Troy Weisler's the deputy chief, and he's going to give you the numbers, and then in a minute we can answer some questions. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you, Marshal Chavez. Thank you, everybody, for coming. My high-tech notes here. So the state police is proud to stand here with all our state, federal, and local partners to ensure the safety of the public. That's what we all signed up to do. And the state police and everyone up here knows that it's critically important that those individuals in our society that are suffering from addiction, that they get the treatment and the help and the care that they need. But let me be clear, there is no place in our communities for those who would bring poison into our cities and towns, killing our citizens and doing it all in the name of greed. There's no place in our great state for those that would plague our communities with violence and fear. And this operation was targeting those individuals because that behavior has no place in this state and has no place in this country. Now, this operation consists of approximately 20 agencies that work together in all those locations that Marshal Chavez spoke about earlier. They were targeting those individuals that are having the largest negative impact on our communities because of all the things that we just talked about. Now, you've heard the name of the operation is Operation Blue Crush. I voted for Operation Black and Gray Crush, but I got outvoted. So a couple of things. This operation was a 90-day operation, but the work never stopped. So you're going to notice a couple of differences. I'm going to give you some stats, and some of these stats are going to be a little bit different than what's up there because the work doesn't stop. There was still work being done, good work being done, and things happening last night. So there's even going to be a little bit of difference with what you see up there. But in total, 310 arrests were made. Of those arrests, approximately 60% had some sort of relation to fentanyl. And the remaining of those arrests outside of that had a violent crime nexus. There was 6 homicide suspects arrested as part of this operation, 1 kidnapping suspect, and the other individuals had various aggravated assault charges, sexual offense charges, or different types of weapons charges. Out of those 310 arrests, 62 of the individuals had a gang affiliation of one type or another with various criminal organizations. Firearms seized. If you notice a difference there, it's up to 100 firearms now that have been seized as part of this operation. Narcotics seized, 130 kilograms now after yesterday, 54 kilograms of which were fentanyl, which would have caused untold numbers of overdoses and deaths in our community had it made it to the street. The value of that fentanyl, this is just the fentanyl, $5.4 million. And then in addition to the guns and drugs seized. $177,938 of U.S. currency were seized, and 8 vehicles. And that's the numbers, and so you can see that up there. You'll notice, like I said, there's a few differences due to some stuff that happened last night, but we'll take additional questions at the end related to any specifics on that. Thank you. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you. So now I'd like to call up our agency heads, our agency leaders to make some comments. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce our newly minted, newly sworn in United States Attorney, Alex Ubaez. Some of you know Alex. He's been here at the U.S. Attorney's Office for, I think, 7 years. And we're very proud to call him our new Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the state of New Mexico. We look forward to working with him and know that a good portion of the cases that we bring forward here on the local and state level will be adopted by these federal agencies and eventually prosecuted by Alex's office. And this is a big, this is a huge tool for us in operations like this to be able to take some of these burdens off of our local prosecutors, our sheriffs, our chiefs in some of these smaller communities and bring them to the U.S. Attorney's Office with the hope that we can prosecute them in the federal system. So we're working on that as we speak. So we expect that some of these cases will in fact be prosecuted federally. So thank you in advance, sir. So first I'd like to call our host up to say a few words, Sheriff Manny Gonzalez.
Thank you, Marshall.
Sir.
Well, I just want to thank all the law enforcement agencies for attending. We're a local government, but this isn't a localized problem. This is a problem that's plaguing not only our state, but our country, and we are a border state. So the only way we're going to be able to address this is a regional problem, is as a regional group. So I'd like to thank each and every partner for their commitment. I'd like to speak directly to the folks that are participating from our agency and thank them, because I know that a lion's share of these cases that were produced in Bernalillo County and Albuquerque, a lot of our staff were involved. But again, we can't do it without our federal partners, our state partners, and these additional cases, because I know 60% of them involve fentanyl. But the other 40% involve violent crimes. Again, to the state police statistics that they brought out, 6 of those people were homicide offenders. There's people that are out there with sexual assault charges, and that's where our violent crimes team come in with the FBI, our other agencies. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you. And again, I think the thing that's most important for us, it brings a level, a regional awareness for us as law enforcement colleagues to understand that if we work together, that we can have this impact. And I'd like to let the marshal know that she has my vote as far as Blue Crush, because they're ponying up the money, okay? And that's what it really comes down to, is that, we have to kind of put our money where our mouth is. And when the state comes up with that money, I will vote for the black and gray, okay? So that being said, I don't know if you have an
Makes me feel cheap, but okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. But that really it's part of the model, right? The HIDTA model. And we all have access to different types of money to do different types of operations. And it's really our honor to be able to support in that way. So thank you.
I would never think of you cheap.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, we're going to call up the most notable man in Eddy County. That's the sheriff, Mark Cage. He drove all the way up from Carlsbad. He is a leader in New Mexico HIDTA and a great partner. And while he walks up here, I'd like to recognize who I call the godfather of New Mexico HIDTA, and his name is Bobby Sullivan. He's ancient. He's sitting in the back somewhere. But he's been involved in New Mexico HIDTA longer than any of us in this room and knows more about New Mexico HIDTA than probably any of us. He's the commander out in Region 6, which covers the whole southeast section of the state. They had tremendous involvement and results here. And I really appreciate Bobby Sullivan, the support he gives to the Marshal Service and to New Mexico HIDTA. So he's your partner, too.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Marshal. Thank you, Sheriff. First off, thank you to all of our federal partners and our state partners and our local partners. We couldn't do it without y'all. This is what it's all about. This is what HIDTA is about. It's about cooperation, collaboration, and results. And you see the results over there. I'm chair of the Region 6 Drug Task Force and the Pecos Valley Drug Task Force. Region 6 encompasses Chavez, Eddy, Lee, Lincoln, and Otero counties. And I'm going to brag on my folks for just a minute. Blue Crush arrests, 38. Fentanyl pills seized, 38,803. Fentanyl powder seized, 1,274 grams. Methamphetamine seized, 56,225 grams. Firearms seized, 82. Cash and assets seized, 71,000. Fugitives arrested, 45,000. This is in Region 6 alone. So I have a message, and it's to any of the folks who are stupid enough to try and deal drugs, try and deal fentanyl, this poison, to bring it into my county, into Eddy County. We're going to come for you, we're going to find you, and we're going to put you in jail. And if you get out, we're going to come and do it again and again until you get stuck in prison. We're tired of it. We're tired of our citizens dying, being killed by this poison. We're sick of the violent crime that accompanies it. We've had enough. We've been fighting this for a long time, and we're taking it up a notch. This Blue Crush, this is taking it up a notch. And we're going to do it again and again and again, as long as it has to happen. We're going to produce results, and we're going to come, and we're going to get you. And we're going to protect folks like you. So, thank you.
I was looking for Chief Deputy from Lee County. Did you want to say anything, or? I don't have anything. Okay, not to put you on the spot or anything. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our federal partners, and I'd just like to call, Mr. Barola is brand new to the district. Welcome. Would you like to say a few words for HSI?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Francisco Barola. I'm the Special Agent in charge for Homeland Security Investigations in El Paso. My area covers 18 counties in West Texas and the state of New Mexico. It is truly an honor to be here amongst the leadership from the various agencies, both federal, state, and tribal. And the Sheriff, thank you. U.S. Marshal, thank you for hosting us and really putting this together. This is tremendous. To see this continue is going to be in all our eyes. To really just take, like the Sheriff stated, we can't have this enough. I'm seeing it come across the border day in, day out. We're seizing substantial amounts of fentanyl, fentanyl pills, fentanyl powder, and we're also seeing the increase in deaths throughout this great nation. We're going to do our best as a unified front to combat this this crime. So I appreciate it, Marshal. Thank you very much.
Anybody else want to? Okay. All right, so at this time, oh, there we go. Mr. Bahanda, there we go. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks. Really, this is all about the men and women who did this, right? So we're up here, and we're going to tell you about all the great successes that our agencies did, but it's these men and women that actually put their lives every single day to make sure that we're all safe, right? It's not just your communities. It's our community. This is where we live. And just like the Sheriff said, just like everyone else up here that has said it, it means something to us, right? We have our own slogan, "On crime equals federal time, no parole." Why do we say that? Because we mean it. And we're going to take these individuals off the street. We're going to put them away for a very long time, send them away from New Mexico, and hope they don't come back, because that's where they belong. But it's these men and women. That's who I'm proud of. So thank you. Thank you from the FBI. And we're just happy to be here. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, if you all have any questions, we'd be happy to field those now. I'd like to ask Mr. Millard and Mr. Glassby to come up and be prepared to answer most of those. Thank you. Yes, sir? Yes, sir, you too? Does anybody have any questions?
Sir, please.
Mr. Millard, do we have an updated total value for all of the drugs that ended up getting seized after last night?
The value we gave, the 5.4 million, is for the fentanyl. So it's about that's 54 kilos, and the math's that's the street value. We're valuing these pills at about $10 a pill. That we canvassed the whole state of New Mexico, and it can be $10 here, $12 there. It came out to about a $10 average. So 54 kilos. A kilo is about 10,000 pills. So you can do the math. That's where that number came from. I don't have the number right now with the methamphetamine and the other drugs. Ma'am.
We understand, the dealing of drugs overall has evolved over the years. What role did social media play in this operation for you all?
Yeah, so it has evolved, and it's changed quicker than I've ever seen it before in my 20 years, and Will in your years. That the drug trafficking has changed, and what we're really good at and what these men and women are really good at is adapting. I don't want to give means and methods, but 100% the drug cartels, whether it's down in El Paso where I'm in the border where it's coming across, or up here in Albuquerque or in Carlsbad, they're using social media to sell this. And we've adapted to that, and we have investigations targeting the people using social media to sell the drugs. Ma'am?
What exactly was the 90-day operation? When did it start and when did it end?
Yeah, so it ended last night,
Okay.
and like Sheriff Case said, it goes on, right? We have a deadline. So it started about 3 months ago. So we've been working it day in and day night. These guys are out there. Literally, we were getting statistics last night coming in with some fantastic work. But it doesn't end today. This is what we do. This is what we do every day. This just really highlights the necessity and really the importance, what we've seen in the last year, the spike in fentanyl being seized, the overdose deaths going up. Like, we have to do this. We have to get the word out. We have to stop it, but we have to get the word out to the public, the dangers.
And I'm looking at that map over there. So they're like the green parts are kind of where the operation took place.
The green parts of the HIDTA designated counties specifically. Okay. And there were operations in most of those counties, as the marshal had indicated.
Okay. And where did the majority of the arrests or the majority of the drugs seized, what kind of area of the state did that occur?
Yeah, I think what you'll see is the bigger metropolitan areas, obviously. We had a lot in Las Cruces, and we had a lot, as Sheriff Kay said, out in the Carlsbad, that southeastern New Mexico area, and then up here in Albuquerque and surrounding areas. It's just the nature of the populations where a significant amount have been seized. It's balanced between those three areas.
What's important to note, too, is none of these operations really looked the same. So part of the beauty of being able to do something like this is we have a lot of flexibility to go to Lee County and talk to the sheriff, or Eddy County. What are your threats? What do you need from us, right? So his situation is very different than Doña Ana County or San Juan County, so, and very different from Bernalillo County. So we have the flexibility to run operations that are conducive to their needs. You know, again, large metropolitan area, Sheriff Gonzalez's problems here are very different than Sheriff Cage's problems. So our deputies and the entire task force units are able to kind of cater the operations to the need of that community, and that's I think what makes this so impactful.
And is that, sorry. I'm just trying to clarify a couple of things to make sure I get it right. So on that poster board, it says that the total arrests are the combined total from Operation Blue Crush and Operation Triple Beam. So is that the total arrest in 90 days, or is that including arrests from a previous operation?
Yeah, Triple Beam is the U.S. Marshals Service official name.
Right. So just for clarification, this joint operation involving all of us is Operation Blue Crush. In the Marshal Service, we kicked in what is known as Operation Triple Beam, and that's an internal gang fugitive initiative, and it helps us access more resources for New Mexico. So when we request and are approved for Operation Triple Beam initiatives, and we've had several of them here in New Mexico, then headquarters is able to deploy people, resources, technical resources, and funding for us to support our local partners. So the Triple Beam is within the Operation Blue Crush.
But it's all within 90 days? Like
Yes, 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 yes.
Correct.
This operation, a collaboration of 20 different agencies, is this the first of its kind here in New Mexico so far? When have we seen something like this in the past, and anything I can reference from the past?
Yeah, I wasn't present. I've been in my role for the last several months. I know this has been done several times. I'll defer to some of the people that have been here, Mr. Glasby.
What I'll say is, from a HIDTA standpoint, the majority of these agencies already work together. Right. What is kind of a one-of-a-kind is a statewide operation focused on fentanyl traffickers. These aren't fentanyl users. We were very clear to the enforcement initiatives. We're not going after users. We're going after the dealers. And to my knowledge, there hasn't been a HIDTA or there hasn't been a state that's been able to look at the big picture all across the state to tackle the fentanyl traffickers in their state.
What sort of makes this operation unique league? Is it funding? Is it the federal partners getting involved with the local agencies? Like, what's different about what you guys are doing with BCSO and state police on your normal day-to-day?
I think it's all the above. So, on any given day, these operations were happening independently of each other. This was where the Marshal Service came in, DEA, all the federal partners, and we went out and we went from the Region Drug Task Force, we went around and said, hey, can we get your buy-in on this 90-day operation, this surge, to target, as Mr. Glassby said, to target the traffickers, the people selling this. So some of these, in different communities, they have other duties. They're doing maybe they're not doing fentanyl cases every day. We said, let's focus on the fentanyl traffickers for 90 days. So, and the funding was critical. The marshals, a significant amount of funding was brought people in from around the country, my understanding, right? So bringing in the funding, bringing the people, supplementing the local and state and local agencies with funding. So it was an all hands on deck, statewide approach, and that's the uniqueness of it.
After having made the 310 arrests, do we have an idea of where the drug is actually coming from, the majority of where these dealers are getting their product?
Yeah, so the fentanyl's coming from Mexico. It's produced in Mexico with chemicals from Asia. Most of the 54 kilograms is in the pill form. You've seen the blue M30 pills. Most of them, that's the fentanyl that we're being seized. We did see some powder fentanyl. It's coming from Mexico. Down in the southern part of the state, it's typically coming over the Texas border there in the Juarez area. Up here, it's 50-50. It comes from the Arizona border. It comes from the El Paso area. It comes up the interstate highways into the community here. But the fentanyl's coming from Mexico.
I think, well, we all know this fentanyl epidemic has gotten worse over the last 5 years. But for regional specific officers like Sheriff Cage, how have you seen this epidemic worsen over the last 3 to 5 years?
It's spiking now.
Why don't you come up here so they can hear you on there?
Sorry. Yes. It's spiking now. We had a 10-year-old child die of an overdose. It was his third time overdosing, where the grandmother gave him Narcan 2 times before that. The mother and the grandmother were dealing fentanyl. So it's getting worse, and it's being laced into marijuana, illegal marijuana, obviously. It's being disguised as different types of pills, not just the blue ones that we're talking about. And so we're seeing a marked increase, and we're seeing deaths across the nation have spiked. And in New Mexico, yes, we're seeing it in our little town of Carlsbad. And, well, little town, we're a little bigger than that, but we're seeing a lot of it. So yes, to answer your question, the last year has been unbelievable in the spike that we've had. So, and unless we keep doing things like we're doing now and standing as a unified front like this wall right here, it's going to get worse, and we're going to have more deaths.
If I could just follow on the sheriff. The scary thing about fentanyl is we're seeing it mixed with other drugs, as the sheriff said. People think they may be using one illicit drug, albeit cocaine, methamphetamine, and in fact, it has fentanyl in it. And if that's where we're seeing, that's what keeps me awake at night. It's scary. The drug dealers, it's pure greed. They're putting the fentanyl in their products to create an addiction, to drive the market, to make more money. And that's the problem. That's the word we have to get out to the community, that you don't know. If it doesn't come, if a pill or a medicine doesn't come from a pharmacy, it's not safe to take.
Could you give us a general idea? Like, I'm looking at your photos and some of the counterfeit pills you have photographed and talked about how it's laced in other drugs. Can you give us a broad ratio of how much of it you were actually able to clearly identify this is fentanyl, or how much of it did you have to look at and investigate whether or not it really was?
Yeah, so when the drugs are seized, they're sent off to the laboratory for analysis. And literally thousands of pills were seized last night, so we don't have the results. But when we're seizing a lot of the fentanyl pills in large bulk volumes, it's illicit fentanyl. How much is in there? We don't know that until each exhibit comes back from the laboratory.
Talk about some of the hazards posed to officers when seizing or making these arrests.
Sure. it's dangerous. I'm sure the sheriffs, the chiefs, and us as federal agents, when our men and women are out there, what used to just be a white powder, could be methamphetamine or cocaine, could be field tested on the side of the road. Now the officers, the agents, they don't know what it is. We have a very strict protocol with any unknown substance to bring it to our office and test it under a fume hood, like in a laboratory. So it's tremendously dangerous. It's dangerous to the officers. It's dangerous to the first responders, and it's a problem. And most agencies have a protocol to be extra safe with it.
To piggyback up, the dangers of like a traffic stop or a house warrant, like
Yeah.
where you guys go through.
Yeah, we have to look at it different now, because a white powder is an unknown substance. We have to assume it could be fentanyl. In this day and age, that's what we're seeing. If you look in this operation, the majority of the drugs seized were in fact fentanyl. So what used to be a white powder and you don't know, now we have to assume it's fentanyl. We have to treat it like that. If we know it's a known fentanyl substance, we're going to call in our clan lab team, the high hazard environment team that wear the suits and the tanks. So those are the lengths we'll go to when we suspect it's fentanyl in our residence.
What about the dangers of the officers making contact with guys?
It's dangerous. I mean, I think almost every agency here carries Narcan. We carry Narcan because we're worried about ourselves and our fellow agents as well as the citizens.
And know that every time that our officers, our deputies, our agents are going out on any type of drug investigation, they are always on notice, because where there are drugs, there are guns. Where there are guns, there's violence. And so this operation is targeting fentanyl distribution, but it's our effort to continue to address violent crime in New Mexico, because we all know that dangerous drugs are a driver in violent crime. So every time our law enforcement officers go out there, that's the front of their mind. They expect to find weapons, and they expect to find those who are very brazen about using those weapons. So it's incredibly dangerous and risky.
Quick question, Sheriff Cage, you mentioned this was like turning enforcement up a notch. How do you sustain sort of this notched up effort when we know federal funding is such a key part of it, and funding is not, as we know, unlimited?
It's extremely difficult. We're all struggling with manpower. We're struggling with just filling shifts. But we've made a huge commitment, and the citizens in Eddy County have made a huge commitment, along with the commissioners that fund me, to help fund us and help give us the extra funding to recruit more officers. And we put a lot of resources into our drug task force. A lot of resources, more resources than I've ever seen in any place else I've worked. And it's going to be difficult, but it's a commitment that I make, and I set the tone. It's my agency, it's my office. I am the sheriff, so I get to set the tone there and say, this is what we're going to do. And as long as someone is there to say that, and you have some backing, and you have folks like this to help you, that's how we keep it going. That's how we sustain it. But it wears on you. And that's why we do a 90-day operation. Then we kind of get back to normal. And then we come back and we say, okay, let's hit them again. And let's hit them again. So that's how we do it.
Just one more question for me here. The 54 kilogram number for fentanyl, is that just pure fentanyl, or is it other drugs that are laced with fentanyl?
No, so that's the weight of the pills. So if you take all the pills and the powder, that's the total combined weight. Within a specific pill, there's a trace amount of fentanyl, and that's what's scary. Who's making these pills in Mexico? These aren't made in a pharmaceutical lab. So that's one pill may have very, very, very little fentanyl, and one pill may have too much, and that's why we're seeing the overdose death. So that's the weight of the pills and the powder combined. Sure.
So with the 310 arrests, what do you think the majority of the people are charged with, or what are some of the charges they're facing? And are those mostly federal, or are there some state charges as well?
Yeah.
It's mostly state and local charges. We are hoping that we will have between 20 and 30 federal charges out of the 310. The majority of them are, I think we said about 65% of the arrest charges are related to fentanyl. All others have some sort of violent crime nexus. So we had a kidnapping case, several homicides, felon in possession of a firearm, a lot of gun charges, so violent crime charges.
Okay. And when you say connected to fentanyl, do you mean like possession or trafficking? Like what?
Yes.
Okay, both of those?
Yes.
Could you provide us with a list of the 310 people? I mean, obviously not an oral list, but like afterwards.
We won't be in a position to provide the list of the targets for a while until they're charged. Some have been charged, some have been charged, and some are still pending charges. So if you get with me, we can probably pick some out that you might be able to highlight that are.
Okay, so I'm confused about how people are arrested but not charged.
I can tell you that sometimes a task force will go out and make an arrest or see some drugs or guns, and the circumstances may not warrant charging them at that time. It may become part of a bigger investigation, so we need to leave things open for a moment, or they need to. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn and. There are still parts of the investigation that are pending. So there's only a handful of people who have not yet been charged. I think there's 7. For the most part, everyone has gone through that formal process.
Okay, so all but 7 of the 310 people have been charged?
Those are the numbers that I had as of last night. Yeah, I can follow up with you because I don't want to give you the wrong information. And again, there's a distinction between charging locally and those that we hope to charge federally. That will take some time. We won't be able to provide you that for a little bit.
Okay, that's going to be the last question. If you have any other questions for the marshal or any other people that are standing up here, they're more than welcome to see if they're willing to speak to you on behalf of their agency. So you want to do your closing?
Oh, that's it.
All right,
We appreciate
there you
all
go.
coming.
Thank you. Thanks for attending.